It's time for On Point with Julian Phillips.
You know, this week on Point, I had promised that we would devote the entire month to Black History Month. And I'm going to continue to do that, but there's so many important things that are going on now in the world of politics and how it affects us as people, but and Black people as well. But I just wanted to take a little point of departure this week and focus on the world events as they have been unfolding here in this country. And just talk about this whole issue of the impeachment, what happened, the acquittal. Most journalists have been talking about how this affects the Republican Party, how it might affect Donald Trump in the future that he may have outside of office and where the Republican Party goes. But, you know, staying on point, there's a bigger picture here. There is a worldview and how we stand in the world now post Donald Trump and post this second impeachment. I've been talking about this, of course, with our good friend Eric Ham, and Eric has been kind enough to join us on this On Point just to talk about this issue here because it's something that you really need to know. Eric, where are you? There he is. Just by magic, you appear from Washington, D.C. How are you?
I'm good, man. Good to be with you today.
I know you've been very busy. Look, we had a great conversation a couple of days ago about what no one really seems to be touching upon here. And that is our worldview when it comes to this country, our standing in the world as a result of what has happened in the Senate and Congress with this acquittal. And I want you to talk about that because it's very profound. And I don't understand why people, other journalists, are not giving this critical information to the viewing public, the reading public. Let's talk about this. Well, tell us, you explain what this really means in terms of contextual sense of where we are in the world now and how the U.S. is viewed as a result of what has happened in D.C.
Right. Well, first of all, Julian, there are two hallmarks of the United States for the rest of the world when they look at us: a nation of laws and our ability to export this idea of human rights, that we care about what takes place in the world. And the fact that we saw an insurrection, and when you look at other countries around the world in particular, they know what an insurrection looks like. They know what it feels like. And so what took place at the U.S. Capitol on January 6th, go to a third world country, go to a place like Myanmar, where we know there was just a military coup. Mm-hmm. They know what that looks like. They know what that is. Go to a place like Lebanon. They know what took place on January 6th. They know what that looks like. They know what that is. And it wasn't just so much that it was the government that was attacked. It was how it was attacked. And also, more importantly, what was happening at the time of the attack. Congress was carrying out its constitutional duty of ratifying an election. We were basically seeing the peaceful transfer of power at play. That is the hallmark, the hallmark of American democracy. When you see election and watchers go in across the globe, looking at elections, covering elections, making sure they go on smoothly, that is one of the key components of what the United States wants to focus in and wants to see happen. Was there a peaceful transfer of power? And that peaceful transfer of power was interrupted by violent insurrectionists on that day. And so, and the fact that that took place, and many, including the now minority leader, Mitch McConnell, laid it at the feet of Donald Trump, the president at the time, the commander in chief. And for him to not be held accountable by lawmakers, by the arbiters of the law, Julian, that makes it difficult for the United States, for the levers of U.S. global power to now be able to go to other countries and say, this is how you should be operating. This is how you should be handling your business as a government. This is how you should be comporting yourselves with your people and on the world stage. And the fact that Mitch McConnell, even after the question of is it constitutional to hold a president accountable for the insurrection, that was voted on. It passed, meaning it is constitutional for this to take place. And then for the minority leader, the leader of the Republicans, to then say, I refuse to convict because I do not believe this is constitutional. Well, what he has just done is he has just violated not only his own oath of office, but he has just violated a key tenet that was just passed by the Senate, which is this is constitutional to hold this trial. Now, how is Secretary of State Tony Blinken going to engage with the leaders of Yemen or the Houthi rebels in Yemen? Because there's a civil war going on in Yemen. How can he say, hey, look, you need to back off because this is a humanitarian crisis? This is not right. How can he say that to them after Mitch McConnell not only votes to acquit, but then stands on the floor and says that Donald Trump is guilty? He's just flouted the law. And so let's take this because this is Black History Month. So let's connect the two. When George Floyd was killed by a police officer, you saw the Black Lives Matter movement explode across this country. And what did that do? That resonated across the world. We saw people as far as Australia. We saw people in China marching, holding signs all throughout the Middle East. I can't breathe. Because the weight of the police, which is a representative of the state, its neck on a man until you choke the life out of him. Not only does that resonate with the most vulnerable in this country, it resonates around the world. And what the world saw was they saw America stand up and they said, this gives us a pass to also stand with them, but also take their lead and speak to our leaders about our grievances as well. So what we saw in that instance was we saw the United States through its African-American population lead the world on this movement that people need to be heard and the weight of the state needs to come off our necks collectively. That was the United States leading on this moral authority. But now that we see the commander-in-chief himself stand on the neck of government, and the government says, it's okay. We have lost our moral authority to be able to hold the world to account because we refuse to hold ourselves to account.
This is brilliant. And I'll tell you why it's brilliant. And we're going to take this down into the ghetto vernacular so everybody can understand. Okay? It's like, how you going to tell me what to do, America, when you ain't doing what you supposed to do? How are we supposed to respect you and take anything that you can tell us when you ain't doing it in your own house yourself? So in other words, if you living in a glass house, don't throw any stones.
Exactly.
So, I guess, Eric, here's the thing. There's politics and there's layers of it. There are things that we know. There are a lot of things that we don't know. But a lot of this stuff seems kind of elementary to me. Let's go to Mitch McConnell for a second. Mitch McConnell is not a stupid man. He's very shrewd. But what he has presented here seems to me to be not only schizophrenic and contradictory, it seems like he's playing himself a fool. On the one hand, he says, well, you know, he's no longer in office, but he was the one who delayed this impeachment going after, you know, after January 20th. So, I mean, this doesn't make any sense to me. And then, of course, he says, well, Donald Trump is morally corrupt. You know, this is, of course, after, you know, the trial, the impeachment. But, you know, he's saying all this stuff, but yet and still he voted to acquit. What's the game plan? Is there any game plan here? Is there anything that we are not seeing that perhaps you as a political analyst sees that we are not seeing?
You know, I am really perplexed by what we saw from Mitch McConnell, because many people see Mitch McConnell, and this is what we have to do with Mitch McConnell. We have to basically remove the veil on who and what Mitch McConnell is. You know, Mitch McConnell is not about legacy. Mitch McConnell only focuses on and cares about the here and the now. Mitch McConnell is all about just accruing as much power for himself as he can. And I think we just have to accept that. But also, Mitch McConnell knows how to use the levers of the Senate to advance his aim. Mm-hmm. Outside of that, Mitch McConnell is not a shrewd deal maker. He's not a shrewd lawmaker. He knows when it's like he is a front runner. When he has control, he knows how to wield it, and he knows how to wield it in very Machiavellian fashion. But what we saw from Mitch McConnell not only, I think, underscored just the depths of how low the party and the first branch of government has sunk, but it also, I think, speaks to just how incompetent and how ineffective Mitch McConnell is just as a basic lawmaker. Because all he did with those comments is once again underscored the rank hypocrisy of the United States, and it's going to make it that much more difficult for institutions to be able to carry out its diplomatic missions, its development missions, its foreign policy missions. And it's going to make it difficult for him to be able to hold his base together and to be able to potentially lead them back to the majority in 2 years, because now what he has done is he has set off this internal battle between himself and the president.
Mm-hmm. Listen, look, Republican Party is one thing. I could care less about them so much now as I care holistically about this country. And what has happened, essentially, Eric, is that this puts like 10 more pounds of dirt on the Biden administration and their ability to carry out foreign policy, and their ability to carry out economic policy, and their ability to carry out social justice policy and human rights policies here in this country and around the world, because of what the Republicans have done in the Senate and in this vote. Only 7 senators voted for this conviction, 43 against. So, we've got a problem here. But there's also another problem, too, before I let you go. I was listening to the cable stations the other day, and I happened to run across something that was said and it recorded on Fox News. As we know, on President's Day, we had this video of this rally down in, I guess, West Palm Beach. Trump was coming from, of course, playing golf. And you had it must have been about 600 people. It looked like more the way they shot it. It could have looked like a cast of thousands. The Cecil B. DeMille production. And then you have Sean Hannity coming on the air saying and talking to Donald Trump Jr. Oh wow, well, this just happened. This was not orchestrated. These people just came out out of nowhere, impromptu, and came to support President Donald Trump. And we only come to find out later that this was orchestrated, that this was planned. It was a planned rally. So what you have here is a situation, and Sean Hannity has the nerve to talk about the state of journalism and where it is now. And he's, of course, part of it, unfortunately. But then he comes out and says this lie. But the danger of it is you have people that listen to Fox. And I'm going to say this again. I don't believe that everybody that voted for Trump is a racist and a conspiracy theorist. I think that there's some very sincere people that have been fed a bunch of lies, and unfortunately, they believe it. They believe what Sean Hannity says, okay? And they see this, and they think that what he's saying is the truth, and it's a lie. And I guess my question is, and I've talked about this with the Fourth Estate, how in the world do we get beyond this when you have so many voices that are speaking at you? You don't have any one place where you can go to get the truth, and you wonder why we are the way we are. There's just too many voices speaking at us. What is the truth? What is not the truth? And how do we get around this to get to the common good so we can move forward here as a country? How do we do this?
Well, Julian, I think it speaks to just the depth of the brokenness of our institutions in this country. The first branch of our government, which was enshrined in the Constitution, is broken. And as a result of that being broken, it's like a disease has spread throughout. So now you've got fundamentally a broken government. You know, we cannot export these ideas. We cannot export our aims of who we are to the rest of the world because we're broken. We're disease infected. I mean, we've got a country now that's looking at almost 30 million people infected with COVID-19. That's 10%, literally 10% of our entire population is infected. We're nearing 500,000 people dead from the virus. That, again, speaks to a level of brokenness. We're in the midst of storms right now. You know, Texas is suffering under the weight of that because they've got a broken infrastructure. So, I mean, so everywhere you look, Julian, you are seeing brokenness in our government, in our Fourth Estate, in our very institutions, you know, our legal system. You know, everywhere you look, there's brokenness. I mean, that's what we are right now. Beto O'Rourke, former presidential candidate and Senate candidate, said today that Texas is a failed state. I would expand that out to the country. We are right now a fragile state. That's where we are right now, because you have a large swath of American people who simply do no longer support the aim of democracy. And we saw that on display in this trial of President Donald Trump with his own party. And that's where the nation is right now. So how do we get around it? How do we fix it? We have to first acknowledge and address our own brokenness. And until we do that, I don't think we will get around it. I don't think we can come to a solution, because first we have to own it. First what is it? The first thing you have to do is you have to admit that you have a problem, right? Isn't that the first sign of healing? You know, we have to at least admit that we are broken. And until we do that, we're not going to fix ourselves. We're not going to fix our institutions. We're not going to fix our government. We are not going to fix our legal systems. We're not going to fix our infrastructure. And the problem of it is the most vulnerable that get hit first and get hit the hardest. And that's where we stand. And so right now, even the elite in the nation are only holding on by a thread, because the very veneer of this system of government, because it's so broken and because the president attempted to overthrow it, that means even they are vulnerable.
Right. Well, you know, we are, in a sense, in a theological sense, we are at the edge. We are at the edge of the Red Sea with the Egyptians on our tails. But I'll tell you what, I do believe that there is hope. And I'm going to talk about that in a minute here. But I just want to thank you for giving us the insight, because, you know, that's why, you know, we love you so much, Eric Ham, because you give us insight that we're not really getting anywhere else. Nobody has ever mentioned the wider ramifications of this acquittal, what it means for our standing in the world and what it means for the world and human rights. So I just want to thank you for that. And I hope that we see you soon. I'm going to go back to a full show on Black History Month next week. But we need you, Eric. And I just want to I just want to just let you know that not only do we appreciate you, just keep on keeping on, because you are a voice out there that really needs to be heard. And we are glad to have you here on Point. So on that note, brother, have a great week. And
Thanks, Julian.
All right.
Okay, buddy. Have a good one. Thanks.
You too, man. So we are on the edge. And, Eric points a picture of a country that is broken. We are. We're still a strong country. I still think we are a great country, and with all of our imperfections, and there are many. But the issue of confronting and realizing and acknowledging that there are problems here is something, somehow, some way, we're going to have to get to. We still haven't acknowledged fully race in this country. And until we acknowledge it and confront it, that will always be a problem. But there is a greater force. And for me, I have to go to that greater force. And that is God. Now, this Black History Month, if you look at where we've been, I was watching a program the other night, The Black Church in America, Henry Louis Gates. Phenomenal series. You need to check it out. It's a multi-part series. And there was a historian on there, I believe she was a historian, that said, there is no way in the world that we as Black people should even be alive. The Middle Passage should have killed us. Slavery should have killed us. Every step of the way that we've tried to achieve, and we've been met by overwhelming odds of racism, lynchings, murders, even laws, Jim Crow, separate but equal, you name it, the 3/5 compromise, you name it, not being allowed to read or write. Violence, even when the church started becoming powerful, a lot of ministers and churches were killed and churches were being burned down. But yet and still, here we are. Or in the ghetto vernacular, here we is. Can't stop us. We are God's people. And Black folks are not the only ones that are God's people. But the world and certain white folks need to understand that, yes, we too are God's people. And no matter what you do, we're still going to be here. And we're still going to thrive. And we're going to survive. I believe that God has a plan. I don't know what it is. But somehow, some way, this experiment called democracy will survive. We as Black people have too much at stake in this country because we helped build it. Helped build it. And in some ways built it on free labor. The 100% Black tax. That's just one thing. So he'll find a way. I believe that. And that's where my hope lies. And if it's not totally in my lifetime, for my nieces and nephews and those who come behind us, one step forward, inching forward, forever moving in the right direction. That's where my hope is, no matter what it looks like. Next week, I'm going to continue as we end Black History Month talking about Black scientists and inventors. And you're going to be surprised at some of the things, if you don't know already, that Black folks have been responsible for. A lot of things that we kind of take for granted. I hinted on some of these things before, but we're going to end it on that note, and then we're going to move forward in the future. Have a good week. Remain steadfast in prayer and in hope that God will see us through. See you next week.